On Wednesday, the Minnesota Supreme Court overturned the conviction of Francois Momolu Khalil, who stands accused of sexually assaulting a woman in 2017. He picked up a woman who'd been turned away from a bar for being too intoxicated, invited her to a party, and then he took her back to his house where there was no party, as detailed in a 6-0 Supreme Court decision. Now, this decision is going to be easy, right? 6-0. This guy is terrible, as you're about to see. Hold. It's shocking and terrible which direction this went. They explained further, the woman who'd taken shots at a prescription narcotic before meeting Khalil fell asleep on his couch. She woke up to find Khalil penetrating her. This is such a disturbing story. Later on, they explained she lost consciousness again when she woke up sometime after 7 in the morning. She saw her shorts around her ankles. Now, as if this horrific rape wasn't bad enough, now comes the horrible twist. They explained in his appeal, Khalil didn't challenge that version of events. He also did not challenge prosecutors' argument that he knew or could have figured out that the victim was extremely intoxicated. Instead, his lawyers argued that the victim wasn't mentally incapacitated as required under the state's 3rd-degree criminal sexual assault law. Under that law, someone qualifies as mentally incapacitated only if they do not drink or take drugs of their own free will. So it counts as incapacitated if somebody gave you the drugs or the alcohol. But if you had a beer on your own in Minnesota, you can be legally raped. It went 6-0, saying he not guilty. They removed it to a lower court and they ruled in his favor. That's unbelievable. Adrienne, you're a legal expert. How can this be true? Isn't this the most dangerous thing you've ever seen?
This is absolutely unfortunate, and this gentleman is disgusting, and I have no problem with his full prosecution to the extent possible, but unfortunately this ruling was correct. And the Minnesota Supreme Court did the right thing. And what they're essentially saying here is that under the law, it's defined as mentally incapacitated for it to be 3rd-degree criminal sexual assault. That requires, the individual didn't drink or take the drugs of their own free will, because that's what mental incapacitation is. Because the law requires that you have formulated the ideas in your mind that you're able to do the things that you're doing. So if you're driving and you're drunk, then you can be mentally incapacitated if for some reason maybe someone spiked your drink and you had no idea. But otherwise, you can't be. And so there are a lot of defenses under the law, and the way it's structured is such that to be mentally incapacitated, you did not do this incapacitation of your free will. And so what the Minnesota Supreme Court did is they stuck to interpreting the law. And it sucks, but at the same time, it's the only way the other laws will hold up. And what they are saying is, legislature, you need to change the law, because we know this is wrong. And they even noted that in the footnote. We know that morally, ethically, this is not okay. You need to change the law, and you know it. And so apparently there's supposed to be legislation on the books right now being proposed to change this, to cut out these loopholes so that you can just rape people. It's not okay.
Yeah, I want to be clear here as we go that what Adrienne is saying is that the Supreme Court unfortunately ruled correctly based on the law. The law is what the problem is in Minnesota. And so right now it's a nightmare situation. If you have a beer on your own and you get incapacitated because of that, technically somebody can get away with raping you. And that cannot stand. They must change that law tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the post game as well for our members, because I want to let Woz weigh in on that too. And then we'll also do some lighter stories. So tyt.com/join to become a member, or hit the join button below.
It's always kind of shocking to sort of confront how much so many people hate women. It's kind of crazy. And I'm not even just talking about the guy who raped this young woman. I'm talking about the legislators, like the people who put these laws on the books, right? Like this idea that, you deserved it, or you knew what you were doing, or it's your fault, or et cetera, et cetera. Adrienne brought up a wonderful point. The six justices, they just read the law and interpreted it correctly, and it needs to be changed. And another part of this, this guy needs to be prosecuted for sure. And I do wonder, because I don't think this gets talked about enough when we do talk about rape, because I don't know why we have such a like a punitive just culture. I wonder how much is being done for this young woman to recover, to get her life back. Like, what kind of resources are available to a person who gets victimized this way? I wonder about that. Obviously I want to see this guy get his just due, but I wonder how this poor woman is carrying on after experiencing something so horrible and traumatic. And then, the people who are supposed to be protecting you and helping you, they have these horrible laws on the books that are basically anti your existence, like loathe your existence as a woman. It's awful. There's just no other way to put it.
The system is so stacked against, minorities, women, etc., that you have to make points like this for it to break through to right wingers. The reality is, if you're a guy who drinks too much and passes out in Minnesota, you can also be raped. So I bet if you said it like that, that law would be changed within the week. And it's true, right? It just doesn't happen that often. It happens in other contexts, sometimes in prisons and military, etc., right? Yep. But if you told guys, hey, if you pass out at a frat party, you're open season, anybody can rape you, they'd be like, that what? What? Right? But this law's been on the books for decades in Minnesota, and nobody's batted an eye. It's amazing. So look, if I keep going, it'll take half an hour to vent my anger on. Look, I didn't even know how, growing up, I didn't know how bad patriarchy was. But you gotta open your mind and perspectives to see other people's perspective, okay? And understand, we were all taught, like I call it software, right? We were all brainwashed to believe certain things. And unfortunately, our society brainwashes you that white males are supposed to get everything, and everybody else has to be apologetic and ask for it. And you can set the rules against those folks, and it's perfectly normal. They made us believe it's normal, and it's not normal.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.